Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flickering Dreams for another month. This is our regular monthly review of the best and the worst at the cinema in March 2026. And joining me are the usual Fab Four if you include me. That's myself, Bob Mann from onemansmovies.com. We got Andy Godfrey from Pure 247 Radio and also a general film reviewer in lots of places across the UK. That's the Reverend Andy Godfrey, I should say. He is also the author of Confessions of a Christian Film Critic, which you can buy on Amazon right now. It's a very good read. If you can find an unsigned one, it's worth a fortune. Scott Forbes is from the Forbes Film and TV Review on Facebook, and also joining us is Emma Sewell from Emma at TheMovies, with lots of different things all over social media. Just search for her, you will find her. So we are going to look into the films of March. As always with these sessions, we pick two films each from March which we particularly enjoyed and we review them. I have to say, once again, there are some interesting choices made by the team this month. And the first pick I've taken is a film called The Good Boy, which is not the one about the dog. That is Good Boy. When this film first came out in the London Film Festival, it was called Good Boy, which was very confusing because it was the third Good Boy from that current year, as in 2025, with that title. Now, recognizing that, the producers have clearly stuck a "the" in front of it to make it The Good Boy. And in North America, it's even more differentiated because it's called Heel. And in this film, a guy called Tommy, played by Anson Boone, is a disgusting yob causing havoc of a night in the city centre. But then he finds himself captured, drugged and chained in the basement of a country house. Here's a clip.
I know it may look unconventional. Believe me, we won't be keeping him there for long. Tommy's going through a rebellious phase.
I'm gonna obliterate you the second I get out of here!
It's quite impressive, really, how you've managed to aimlessly float through your whole life completely unnoticed.
You're scared, aren't you?
What do you think all of this is funny? This is real life.
How many of you seen The Good Boy? Just you, Andy. Okay, right. I'm not quite sure what genre you would define it as. Horror, comedy horror, black comedy horror, maybe?
Comedy horror for me. But
yeah, it's a really interesting film that keeps you engaged and guessing throughout. It paints a thoroughly unpleasant picture of this yob, Tommy, since even though these characters that you see, played by Stephen Graham and Andrea Riseborough, have effectively kidnapped and chained this guy up, you think, well, good for them. You kind of are on the side of the unreasonable couple doing this. So you are, to a degree, a little bit complicit with Chris and Catherine in the plot. This, I thought, was a superb piece of acting. I mean, it's got Stephen Graham in it, who is such a reliable pair of hands. And Andrea Riseborough as well, I have to say, is fantastic. But you saw there a little bit of Anson Boone playing the disturbed young yob, and he gives an absolutely fantastic performance. I can't think of what I've actually seen him in before, but here he was absolutely great. The maid there's a Ukrainian, I think she is, maid, played by Monica Fradchik. Lots and lots of consonants there, just one vowel. Apologies if I pronounced that wrongly. She is really effective as this, effectively our view into this world of what's going on. And a young man called Kit Rakusen, who plays their young son, also gives a fantastic performance. So all across the board, I thought the acting here was really, really strong. Much of the plot is kind of left deliberately vague, and there are lots of red herrings thrown into the story, which I really like. There's a superb music score. I guess the negative for some people would be that some of the stuff that is vague is left deliberately vague and left to your interpretation, and that might frustrate people who like a film that delivers a much more clearer cut kind of message. And also, I was a bit confused by the character played by Andrea Riseborough. Catherine starts off this film completely mute. She doesn't have a single line through most of the film, and then she suddenly changes to have dialogue, and that felt a little bit odd to me. It almost felt as if the writers had kind of written her in one way and then decided, oh no, we're going to write her in a different way. So, but that was the only thing I had issues with the film. The other really comical thing about this film are the production credits, and I've commented about this for for some films. But the number of production credits at the start of this film, I mean, they literally go on for 3 or 4 minutes of different production credits. It is just like that fantastic clip from Family Guy where they go in and the film's starting and he said, oh, wow, look, it must be one of these. And say, oh, no, right. But in general, it's a really good film. Andy, you've seen it. What did you reckon?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I thought that, as you say, the character of the wife, who starts off pretty mute and then becomes very, very vocal as the film goes on, was really intriguing. It's almost as if they're trying to train Tommy by chaining him up, not just to be a better member of society, but actually to become part of their family because there's been a tragedy in their families. And I thought that the performances were great. I thought the ending was stunning. I mean, I thought the ending was absolutely fantastic, and I did not see that coming. So I really loved it. It's a really intriguing film. It's got a lot to say about society. It's got a lot to say about young people. It's got a lot to say about, social media. It's got a lot to say about how we deal with elements of society that we don't particularly like. The unsavory people. How do we deal with them? How do we make them better members of society? And I thought it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it when I saw the opening, because we see this young lad out on the town causing havoc and taking drugs and abusing women and, urinating all over the place. And so I thought, oh no. Then the credit sequence kicked in, and then suddenly we're in this basement with this guy chained up by this well-meaning do-gooders who are trying to train him, who are trying to affect his life. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant and very powerful, actually.
Yeah, good. Okay. That's 2 thumbs up from us. And talking of thumbs up, we'll go on to our second film, which, or actually thumbs down. It's Emma's choice. And obviously somebody had to pick the big blockbuster of the month. And this time it was Emma who managed to get Project Hail Mary as her film of the month. Emma, do you want to introduce this?
Indeed. So Project Hail Mary follows Ryland Grace, played by Ryan Gosling, who is a scientist but has changed his life around after an issue and become a school teacher, and he needs to save the world. On his journey, mishap happens. He is the only person left on the ship, and he meets a new friend in space. Here's a clip.
Please state your name.
Ryland Grace. I just woke up from a coma. I'm several light years from my apartment. And I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut.
If you don't go, you die. With the rest of us.
I will always say this. I never really cared for Ryan Gosling previously. Wait, Andy, I saw your face. Wait. I genuinely don't like him in a purely dramatic role. When there's comedy involved, I think he's fantastic. And this was truly amazing. I wrote in my notes to you, Bob, that I was like, oh, I'll put it at a 9 out of 10. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I genuinely can't see anything wrong with this film. So gets the full marks from me. His performance is amazing, especially considering he's acting against CGI for the majority of it.
Ooh, that's a debatable. That's a debatable comment, Emma.
Political
It's
puppet.
practical, actually.
It's actually
My apologies. My apologies. Non-human things. Acting against non-human. But
it's
that,
it's an interesting question as to how spoilery we get about this, because the trailer and even the poster for the film implies what's going to happen in the film. So I think saying what you just said isn't really much of a spoiler, because kind of going in, unless you've been marooned on a desert island
Or outer space.
or outer space.
I just genuinely like the friendship that comes through in the film. I cried a lot. I was just an emotional wreck by the time I left. I was a little concerned about the length of the film going in, but actually I enjoyed every single minute. I genuinely don't think there was anything I was really convinced could be cut out to make it better. Everything just sat right for me. It was funny. It was emotional. I just like how they managed to mesh together two people doing the same thing, but from completely different backgrounds. And I just genuinely enjoyed every minute of it.
Did you actually read the book before you saw? Have
I
any
have
of us
not.
read the book?
I've not read it.
No, because it's my son's favourite book, so he went to see it on like the first day in IMAX because he loved it.
I did hear that it's not quite as faithful to the book, but I have no context for that, so
Well,
I don't
apparently
know.
the book is very scientific, which is probably why he likes it, because he's a kind of maths scientist person. And yeah, I don't think he was disappointed by the film either. And I think in general, most people who've seen this, I have to say, enjoy it. Yeah. There are perhaps a couple of outliers on that. Andy, what did you think of it?
I loved it. I mean, it's a long time since we've had an epic science fiction film of this nature. I think possibly even going back as far as Interstellar. But it really thoroughly enjoyable from start to finish. I love Ryan Gosling, as Emma said, particularly in a comic role. I think he's got this very laid back approach. He is brilliant. I thought the character of Rocky was fun. I thought the ending was cute and really enjoyed that part of it. I just saw everything about it. The score was terrific and the special effects were great and Rocky was great. Some of it didn't make any sense, you know. I mean, okay, we meet an alien we can't communicate with. 10 seconds later, we built a computer program that enables us to communicate. Who cares? You know, you just run with it. And I just thought the story was really, oh, you do, Bob. Okay. I didn't care because I was just thoroughly having such a thoroughly good time in outer space with these two really enjoyable characters trying to save their respective worlds. Yeah, I'm a sucker for it.
Okay. Scott, what's your take?
Yeah, I liked this film, although I wasn't as enthusiastic as a lot of people have been. I think the first third and the last third are excellent, but it's a 2.5 hour or slightly over 2.5 hour film. And for me, the middle section, I think, could have done with a lot of trimming. I think there's a good 45 minutes to an hour that realistically could have been condensed into like a 10-minute montage, really. But that's just me. I thought that Ryan Gosling was great in the role. As you said, technically, it's great. The visuals, the sound design, the score, all that sort of things, I could see being represented in next year's Oscars. Yeah, I just think that middle section could have been condensed a wee bit for me.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I think we're probably outliers on this, Scott. I mean, it was fine. It was enjoyable as a piece of sci-fi entertainment. I think maybe I went into it with the wrong sort of impression that it was a lot more comedic than I was expecting it to be, which came across to me as a little bit frivolous in terms of the way in which it was putting the story across. I was looking for something more interstellar, I have to say, and ended up with something more, I don't know, Freaky Friday. Not that far up the scale, but it was the comedic nature of it somewhat put me off. I also wasn't particularly convinced with Rocky, I have to say. Just the biology of it. That
I mean, come on, people. It's very rare for me and Andy to agree on something. I can't believe it's you two that.
Yeah. I'm sensing this, Emma. Yeah, I mean, Rocky's an alien, Bob. He's from a completely different galaxy. Life is different out there. I mean, right at the beginning of the film, we are told that Ryan Gosling's character was drummed out of the scientific community for proposing that life could exist without water. And here's Rocky, proof that he was right. You know, to me, suspend disbelief, go with it. It's science fiction, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
An extended
Okay.
Black Mirror episode. That's all it is.
Yeah. I enjoyed myself. I just didn't, like Scott, I haven't gone bananas over this film. It's not my best film of the year. I'm not sure yet, to be honest, whether it would make my top 20 best films of the year. I gave it 7 out of 10.
Same.
I'm going to remember this when we do our yearly roundup,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I like I say, I'm an outlier, right? Shoot me, stone me, tar and feather me, right? Yeah, I didn't go overboard about this film like a lot of other people, but a lot of people clearly did, and huge numbers of people have gone to see this film. Which brings us to our next film, which is Scott's choice, where very, 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 very few people have been to see it. Scott, what's your film?
So the film that I really enjoyed last month, or this month even, was a film called One Last Deal. Now, this is a very small British film. It is set in one location. It's got one actor. And when I say this name, I'm sure that lots of people will groan, but it is Danny Dyer. Here's a clip.
Are you there, kid?
Long time, y'all.
I've had a lot of dealings with Madrid. If you want to play there, Jerome, I'm your man.
Yeah, bro. Hola, Jimmy. Everything is okay with you?
Well, I don't take cocaine for breakfast anymore, so yeah, I suppose I'm cured. What would you say to these two words? Jerome Sweet.
Deal.
Hello, Jimmy.
Easy for Sal.
Everyone has a prize?
Go on then, Scott. I must admit, I have not seen this film.
I'm not a big Danny Dyer fan. I don't think there are many people that really are big Danny Dyer fans, but this one, it really hit my buttons. So it's him in a room by himself. It's a hot summer's day. I think they say it's like 40 degrees. He's in an office in London. His fan isn't working, so it's creating that atmosphere. He's a football agent, and it's on a day when his only client is on trial, and there is a verdict due for something that's happened in that football player's personal life. And in the meantime, he's trying to rush to negotiate a contract before the verdict becomes public. Now, while this is all going on, he gets a mysterious phone call in which he gets blackmailed, essentially. And in order to try and find some money from somewhere, he goes straight into professional mode and tries to create the deal of his life. He's on phone to lots of other people, agents, football players, all these sort of people to try and find this money so that he can pay the person that's trying to blackmail him. Now, it's at 1 hour 29, so it's quite a quick movie. It is a film where Danny Dyer is kind of being himself, which...
You amaze me.
In this context, it actually works, however, because the script is surprisingly good. It kept me on the edge of my seat for the whole time, because it's really a mystery. You're just watching him on the phone to people for the whole film. If any of you guys have seen the Kevin Costner film Draft Day, with its American football-based movie, it's got a similar tone to that, but on a far lower budget. What I enjoyed was the fact that, as a football fan, I kind of get that these deals take place, and it was quite interesting to see their point of view of how an agent, perhaps not the most professional type of agent, goes about doing these deals. And because of the fact that we do have just him in a room by himself, and there is a time limit on what he has to do and the decisions he has to make, it creates a sense of urgency. And then you add in a little bit of alcoholism as well to the mix, and it all creates this intense, quite exciting, dramatic tension. So for me, I was very pleasantly surprised with this one. I did not think it was going to be my favourite film of March. I barely thought I was going to enjoy it. But yeah, it was a real surprise. Really enjoyed this.
Andy, you looked like you'd seen this one as well.
Yeah, I've seen this one, and I'm with Scott. My only disappointment, and let me explain, it's an 18 certificate, and the only reason given on the certificate is for bad language. So you've got the F word every other word, basically, and stronger words, if there's possible, than even that. And I think being a film about football, if they decided to go for even a 15 or a 12A and cut that down a bit, it might have appealed to a lot of younger people because, there's a lot of young people who are football fans. So that's the only caveat I would make. That said, given the character that Danny Dyer is playing, basically himself, it was always going to be, I think, an 18 still. I found it tense. I found it exciting. I did figure out who the blackmailer was about halfway through. So that for me did not come as a surprise at the end. But I absolutely loved this. An hour and a half sitting in the cinema, riveted by one man. I mean, Danny Dyer has said that this is his Hamlet. Um, it's probably right, but he's never going to get a better opportunity to showcase what he does. And it's a gripping story, really gripping story.
Give it,
And seriously, you guys should see it. But
yeah.
it really is good.
I mean, why have so few people been to see this? Is it bad marketing?
It's an 18 certificate for starters.
Yes,
So that's
okay.
one thing. I think
Yeah.
that
I
limited its
did
audience.
try and see it, and it was only showing in one
Yeah.
of my local cinemas at like 10 to 10 in the evening, like ridiculous times. And I'm just too old to go out for a film at that time of night, I'm afraid.
You're not too old. Talk to Andy and me about being too old for
21
late
is
night
not too
films.
old.
Honestly, yeah, I must admit I missed it completely. The problem with these films that absolutely bomb at the box office is that they don't get the chance of another week. So if you miss it in the first week,
It'll probably come to a streamer soon enough, Bob.
Oh, I'll be streaming very quickly.
yeah,
But it was fun, enjoyable. I think it would have appealed to a lot of football fans had they gone for a lower certificate. But that said, given the nature of what's going on, the language is perhaps understandable.
yeah. You make a good point though, but it's easy to take language out of a film, isn't it? I mean, that's just a case of saying the flip word instead of the other F word or whatever.
Well,
His last film, I think, was Marching Powder, wasn't it? Which was of a similar vein, again about football hooliganism. That was, wasn't it? I think a lot of people didn't go for that film particularly.
I mean, technically, wasn't his last film Christmas Karma?
Well, thankfully, that one passed me by as well. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then to Andy's film of the month. And I have to say, if Andy hadn't picked this one, I would have picked this one as well. Andy, what have you got?
Well, Emma picked mine actual film of the month in Project Hail
Yes.
Mary. However, I know you guys are hot on the Oscars, which I'm not. So I would have given the Best Actress Oscar to Jessie Buckley. I would have given, at the same time, the Best Actress Oscar to Kate Hudson. And I would have given the Best Actress Oscar to Rose Byrne. So my film is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Now, I have to admit, going in, I was thinking, what on earth does that mean, the title? And I looked it up. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You refers to a state of complete, overwhelming powerlessness and the desire to act against intense pressure. And here's a clip of Rose Byrne experiencing intense pressure.
I try very hard to be in control of her and everything, but may as well not even be there at all.
I don't like how it feels on my sock.
Just stay there, okay? Just hold on.
How deep is it? Are we gonna die? Is the house gonna fall on top of us? Mommy!
Hey, we just got home, and you would not believe.
That's
Just
pressure.
another day in the Mann household. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. I thought it's an intense melodrama about a therapist struggling to cope with her special needs daughter, struggling to cope with the fact that the roof has just fallen in on her apartment and her husband's miles away from home, struggling to cope with life in general. I found it intense. I found it entertaining. I found it funny. I found it sad. I found it all of those things all at once. All sort of, they threw everything into the pot and said, let's see what comes out. And what came out was a really, really good film, a really good domestic drama that just had me. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it going in. I came out absolutely raving about it.
Yeah, it struck me as almost like a companion piece to Amy Adams' Night Bitch from last year.
Kind of. I get that. And I just thought all the performances were great. I thought the little girl was particularly well cast and probably is going to have a big future. But Rose Byrne is in just about every scene in this. and she does give an incredibly remarkable performance. And the score was great. The production value was great. I thought Mary Bronstein and some of the other actors who were in this were great. And some of those scenes where she's doing her therapy work with some of her patients are actually really quite funny, where she gets quite impatient with her patients. And I just was captivated by it.
Who else has seen this other than me, Scott? Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw this one. I thought Rose Byrne was terrific as well. I think of the Oscar-nominated actresses, yeah, I would have probably went Rose Byrne as well. I think her performance was terrific. The film as a whole, I was a little bit less keen on. I think it was just a little bit too weird for my perspective. Yeah, I felt that pressure, but it was that almost Safdie Brothers type of intense just pressure throughout the film that I could have done with a little bit of less of, but I get that's the whole point, is for a little bit to experience the pressure that she's under. So yeah, not for me, but I appreciated the performance.
Yeah, obviously I will third that comment about Rose Byrne. Just that opening shot of her, real close up on her face,
Yeah, exactly.
as she's doing the analysis, you think, wow, that's a piece of acting. And I wouldn't normally associate Rose Byrne with this sort of film as well, but it just shows how versatile she is, really, and a big surprise. I also liked our Oscar host Conan O'Brien as well in his role as a psychiatrist. I thought he was really good as a very alternative piece of casting in the film.
Yeah, she needed him to bounce off, really. The character itself did need somebody to bounce off to.
Yeah. I was also impressed by the rapper A$AP Rocky,
Yeah.
who was also really good in the film. I mean, it was an uncomfortable watch, I have to say. The mix of drug and drink induced kind of paranoia that the lead character has to go through was stressful to watch, I have to say. So it wasn't
that was part of the joy of it, because it kept you wondering, how is she going to get out of this? What's the solution going to be? Is there going to be a solution? And it kept me kind of guessing as to what was actually going to be her fate.
Yeah, so it was a very A24 type of film, I have to say.
It was.
The only thing I didn't particularly like about it was that title, which was so tangential to the piece.
But I think
that I had to go and Google that quote.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But I think it equates to not having a leg to stand on. She just feels absolutely helpless, absolutely useless. She's flapping through life. She hasn't got any legs, really. Her legs are gone. Her support system's gone. And her husband is.
I don't particularly get the quote as being particularly apt for that situation.
That was the intriguing thing about it.
I didn't like the quote, and I didn't like the title, and put the two of those together, and it didn't work for me. But anyway, if that's the only thing I'm complaining about the film, then that's a good piece of work. Okay, we're going to move on to our second film. This is probably the point, if we had any sponsors for this show. Anybody watching want to sponsor us? This is where we'd have your advert playing, right, between the first film and the second film. Yeah, but we don't. But if you want to sponsor this show, please feel free. You can write to us at letters@flickeringdreams.com. And we'd love your correspondence on all of this stuff. If you've got particular comments about the film, message us on letters@flickeringdreams.com, and we'll read out your mail. Look, just like they do on Commode and Mayo's Take. Yeah. So my second film, and I'm not sure whether this is one that everybody will just scorn at, but here we go. My second film is Mother's Pride, and I mean, I feel like a crusty old fart, right, suggesting this film, because it is effectively Fisherman's Friends transported into the Cotswolds, right? In Mother's Pride, we have a famous musician called Cal, played by John O'Davies. He returns to his Somerset village that he used to call home after many, many years away. His irascible father, Mike, played by the wonderful Martin Clunes of Wuthering Heights fame, I should say. He's grieving the loss of his wife, and his brother Jake, played by the In-Betweeners star James Buckley, run the pub there called the Drovers. But the business is in a terrible state due to a yuppie owner, Pritchard, played by Luke Treadaway, in the pub across the road. And they're getting all of the business thanks to their award-winning brew. Here's a clip.
What the hell was that?
Disco Morris.
You don't drink it with your eyes, mate.
Nothing robust about that.
If you want cocktails, I suggest you go over the road with the rest of the prawn sandwich brigade.
I wonder what he's doing back.
Probably to bail his father out of the mess he's in.
Hello, Dad. This place is a madhouse.
Okay. I mean, as I say, this is basically Fisherman's Friends. But I went to see this in a packed screening at Everyman Salisbury where nobody was under the age of like 55. And it's one of those films where you just feel the enjoyment of a film right up to the end titles. And everybody was buzzing about what a good time they had with this film. It smashed the 6 laugh test for me. I thought it was very, very funny. That scene that you just saw where Miles Jupp, where he says, if you want cocktails, go across the road. He's ordered a shandy at the bar. And the response is, if you want cocktails, go across the road. Right. I thought some of the lines in this were really well written, very funny. It's also a moving film as well. The whole concept of the fact that our hero, Cal, has troubles of his own that he's working through. And you also have the grief associated with Martin Clunes's character, which is resolved in a truly beautiful scene, I thought, on a hillside. Was really, really nice. And the cast was good, a good ensemble cast of regulars. You got Josie Lawrence, who's good to see on the big screen again. Actually looking much better than she was in her last film. I thought she looked quite ill and not very well in the last film I saw her in. Here she actually looks a lot better. Mark Addy from the Full Monty fame. There's a young actress in here called Gabriella Wilde, who I didn't know, but she's absolutely gorgeous. And James Buckley, Luke Treadaway, Miles Jupp, as you saw there. So a really nice cast there. The young lady in the film who plays the granddaughter of Mike is Lana Moorcroft, daughter of the director. And she does a really great job as well as a somewhat difficult school pupil who is being taught by Gabriella Wilde's character as well. So it was terrific. The only negatives I have is, yes, it was very, very cheesy. And yes, it was absolutely as predictable as hell. Everything you think is going to happen in this film does happen in this film. So that was the only thing that I could really vote it down for. But I thought it was a lovely film. Who else saw Mother's Pride? No, neither of you two youngsters. Right, so it's Andy. Andy, over to you then.
Yeah, well, I'm just expecting the illustrious Mrs. Mann to come in with a frying pan any moment. Coming from Somerset, which is God's own country, as we know, I thought that this was wonderful. I didn't mind it being predictable. I wanted it to be predictable. I wanted it to play out the way it did. I laughed from start to finish. I loved the idea of disco dancing Morris men. I thought that was hilarious. I thought Martin Clunes was brilliant. Yes, it's predictable as the sun rising. Who cares? I had a wonderful, wonderful time, and I laughed and smiled from start to finish, and I tiptoed out of the cinema having thoroughly enjoyed it. What can I say? It was just
good.
Really, really great, lovely British cast, great, lovely British film about a great, lovely British subject, pubs.
Yep. Good. Okay. We're agreed. Now I want Scott and Emma to see it, just to see if this is an old fart film or whether it's...
Well, I'm not going to lie, because I couldn't make it line up. I sort of looked at it and I'd seen the trailers and I went, it's going to be one of those. But it's like all of those things. I will love to watch it one time, but I decided not to attempt
I will be buying
to.
the Blu-ray when I get this comes out, and I will be watching it every time I feel a bit low.
It is one of those. It is one of those films, I think, yes, that you put on.
And I'm going to be doing the same thing with Scream 7. I had to get in there.
Different film.
Very depressed.
Different film. Okay, let's move on to Emma's second choice, and that is a film, I must admit, I've not seen it. I think it's streaming on Netflix. It's War Machine.
It is
Emma.
indeed. War Machine follows Alan Richardson, who is an army staff sergeant. Following the death of his brother, he decides to fulfill the plan that they had put in place to join the elite Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, which tests everyone to their limits. And spoiler alert, he ends up succeeding, and they go out on a mission that doesn't quite go to plan. Here's a clip.
Hey, slow down, Superman. Making the rest of us look bad.
You can expect your emotional, physical, and mental strength to be pushed to the limit.
Keep your eyes open.
This cover's going haywire.
What the hell is that?
I must admit that clip came as a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know this film was going to go off in that direction, but there you go.
Indeed. So the one thing that I will say straight out is that a lot of people did not like this because they've seen it before, and it is very Predator, Terminator-esque action. But you know how I feel about nostalgic things. I quite enjoyed the fact that it makes for a very easy watch. You kind of know what to expect, but it has these little bits that jump out at you. Obviously, you saw in that clip that, Alan Richardson's character is very focused, and he basically channels his grief and what happened with his brother into his training, frequently pushing himself to a limit no sane person would do. It is just a comfortable, familiar watch. It's not taxing on the brain. It does have that twist. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it. And actually, I feel like they did the whole technology thing quite well without going into many more details. Yeah, it's not groundbreaking.
It looks like an Emma film.
It does look like an Emma film. You are correct. Lots of explosions, lots of stabby murdery action. Solid. I loved it.
Solid. There you go. Right. No sharks, though.
No.
I mean, you could knock a half point off for that, I think. Yeah. Okay, that's War Machine. Is it on Netflix or is it somewhere else?
It was Netflix or Prime.
It's Netflix.
It's Netflix, yeah. Okay, that's War Machine. Scott, your second choice for the month. It's a film, I must admit, I saw only yesterday after catching up on the original earlier in the week. What is it?
This is another film with explosions and stabby action. This is Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, which really should have just been Ready or Not, Here I Come. They didn't need the 2 in there. Silly, but never mind. Yeah, so this is a follow-up to the hugely successful Ready or Not, starring Samara Weaving, in which she got married and then had, let's call it a games night with her in-laws that became very murderous. And spoiler, because there's a second film, she survived. And essentially, she finds herself in a situation where she has to play again. Here's a clip.
You've caused quite a stir, Mrs. Ladonis. You married into that family. Now they're dead. What you didn't know is that this goes far beyond them. By surviving hide and seek, you've triggered a new game. This time against the High Council families. Double or nothing. This part will be familiar. They will try to kill you.
I mean, it says all right there. This film was just a hoot. So I think what I loved so much about the first one was the fact that it just gave us unadulterated cartoon, violent action. And it was, I suppose, in a way, a dark comedy as well. So I was fully on board with that. And this basically just gave me more of the same. So we find our heroine in the hospital following the events of the first movie. And conveniently enough, her sister pops up, who had no mention in the first film, probably because they never intended to make a sequel, but never mind. So she pops up, and then they find themselves playing hide and seek again because, a little bit like the John Wick sequel, they've expanded the lore. There's now a high council of even bigger, even more powerful people. And these rich, crazy people essentially compete to see who can kill her this time. And if somebody manages it, They basically rule the world. And yes, so there's so much blood, so much gore, so much violence, but mostly in a comedic way as well. Or at least I found it comedic. That probably says a lot about me. I thought Samara Weaving was great again in this role, as was Catherine Newton, who pops in as her sister in this. They've got this sibling rivalry where they've been separated for a long time and now they've come back together. So they're trying to work through their own differences while being hunted. Yeah, it's a film where I thought the best character, weirdly enough, was actually Elijah Wood. He plays a lawyer that is in control of all the rules. He tells everyone what is the game, what they can and can't do, and what it all means. And he has this way of just popping up at the right time, or if something bad is about to happen, he has a convincing way of just moving himself from the situation, let's say to avoid blood splatter, which I found really amusing. I think this is one that I've heard a few people say there's one or two scenes where there's male on female violence that was a bit too much for them. And I can understand if that's your perspective, that was a bit of a line too much, fair enough. But in the context of the movie overall, I think it worked for what we needed to feel with the characters. And as a music fan, I'm sure you will have enjoyed some of the needle drops there.
The soundtrack was fantastic.
There's a scene involving Total Eclipse of the Heart that, yeah, it was terrific.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, this was one of those sequels where I thought, I don't know if this is going to live up to the first one. And I probably would say the first one is still better, but it was a thoroughly enjoyable sequel that I could easily watch again.
I would generally agree that the first one was way better. The first one, I think, could almost have a classic tag against it. It's beautiful in its simplicity in terms of what the film is trying to do. It's 90 minutes long. It's just a fun ride from beginning to end. This one I thought was overcomplicated with lots of different rules. I mean, in the first film, spoiler alert, there's a positive reason why, as dawn rises, all the rest of the family suddenly explode, for want of a better word. In here, those rules, it seems to be force-fitting additional rules that come in that mean that if you kill another player accidentally, then you're going to suddenly explode. I'm sure that happened in the first film, didn't it? That one of them killed another one accidentally, and that didn't happen. I took it a whole point lower in terms of my rating for this film, partly for that reason. But I was one of the people, I have to say, that objected very much to the male on female violence during one particular scene between Titus Stanthorpe and Faith. You described a lot of the violence as being cartoonish. I have to say I agree with that. But this particular scene, I felt, against the concept of kind of domestic violence, which I abhor, I thought it was way over the top. And given that this film was a 15 certificate compared to the first film only 7 years ago, which was an 18 certificate, I thought the general level of violence overall was on a par with that first film, which I think was actually fairly soft 18 for the first film. But because of this scene, I felt it genuinely deserved an 18 certificate. And I've actually written to the BBFC, which I've only ever done once before, to tell them that I think that's unacceptable to have that level of violence, which isn't cartoonish. It's just plain unpleasant and unnecessary violence in the film. I thought it was a terrible sequence, that one, I have to say. Overall, though, if you discount that, I thought the film again was fun. Great needle drops, as you've said. I thought Samara Weaving again was really good. She does fantastic meltdowns, I have to say, as her character. Didn't feel quite the same way about Catherine Newton in the supporting role of her sister, and having the film actually set in this enormous great casino hotel was much more convincing for me as a game of hide and seek than having it in that little mansion house, which was way too small to ever lose anybody. So yeah, I thought it was fun.
One thing that I would actually add was towards the end there was a little bit of silliness where the rules bugged me, because there could have been some easy ways that some people could have taken decisions, and I was unsure why they didn't. I'm not going to spoil it, but they find a loophole, and when this is brought up, it sort of slows things down to a point where I'm thinking, there's an easy opportunity here. Why are you not taking it? And so I didn't think that part made sense. But yeah, I won't say more than that.
It was also, talking about slowing things down, there was also a lot of jaw between Faith and what's the other one?
That was my
Grace.
problem, really, because
Faith and Grace. There was jaw about, oh, what did you do and why did you leave me? And it slows the whole pace of the film down as well, when I just wanted some more blood. Thank you.
I didn't think it was intense as the first film because of that. I didn't think it quite had the energy of the first film because of that. And I mean, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. But I think, as you say, the man-on-girl violence would have been an 18 just a few years ago. I think the needle drops were great, but I thought there was too much, like you say, Bob, jaw between the sisters that slowed things down. Would they have really have had time to have those conversations? You know, you'd have been on the run. And also supposedly there were cameras covering every inch of this ground. So why couldn't they just keep tracking where they were the whole time? That was my biggest problem with it. You got cameras everywhere, and yet they can't find them, and they had problems tracking them. So I had some problems with it, which is not to say I didn't enjoy it.
Emma, did you see this one as well?
I did. I did the double bill as well. Yeah, prepped myself with the original. Always good fun. So I did quite like that, although I feel like the first one ended with a potential sequel coming because obviously she inherited it all. I feel like this wasn't the way I would have gone with a part 2. Although, and I know the title does need to get rid of the 2. I do appreciate that unlike some movie franchises, Now You See Me, they did at least make the second film have the right title, which I did appreciate.
I noticed that the actual film didn't have the 2 in the title.
Yeah.
Right. When the title came up, they didn't have the 2. That's been added, which I thought was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. I won't rehash a lot of what you have already said. Like, I agree with some of the scenes were excessive. Samara Weaving, fantastic. Although that scream every time, that wailing scream just sets me off, and I don't know why. But I did like the supporting cast. I love the guy who played Ignacio Nesta Carbonell.
Yes, the man in black from Lost.
Yeah, I love him in everything I see him in. I was really sad that Kevin Durand didn't get more screen time, but I
also
thought that
from
was
Lost.
wild. Yeah. The Buffy reference they managed to get in the trailer, and when I saw it on screen, I laughed so much.
That one went over my head.
I was just like, oh no, you can't make her do that. But when you see it happen, I'm like, yeah, you needed to. But generally, I thought everyone worked really well together. I really loved Elijah Wood. Like I say, he just brought that bit of comedy and just that cheeky look on his face, just constantly, and ducking behind things. And that end scene, I laughed so hard.
I did as
all
well.
the way through it. It was just magnificent. And stabby, bloody gory. I loved it.
Yeah. So that is Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, or Ready or Not, Here I Come, as we'll call it properly on here. Our last film we're looking at today is a documentary, and this is Andy's choice. Andy, this is Man on the Run. Please introduce it.
Yeah, so Scott mentioned a big music fan. I am a massive fan of the Beatles. I've got every single Beatles album on vinyl as well as CD. So this is a documentary about Paul McCartney, the end of the Beatles and the formation of Wings. Here's a clip.
Whoa, beautiful. Right, so if I form a new band, do you want to be in it? And she kind of, yeah. Okay, well, we've got 2 members. We started Wings from square one. This Paul McCartney of Wings. It was about trying to do something different.
What am I doing? Singing with Paul McCartney?
When did you first discover Linda could sing?
On the wedding night.
Yeah, so this had a limited run in cinemas. It's now on Amazon Prime. I thought it was brilliant. It begins with the breakup of the Beatles, John blaming Paul, Paul blaming John, and thankfully does show their reconciliation towards the end of John's life. There's a whole section dealing with the conspiracy theory that came up in the late 60s that Paul was actually dead and had been replaced by a double. There are various clues on the Abbey Road cover album if you choose to believe the conspiracy, and all sorts of other things. There's a famous photograph of the Beatles with three of them looking forward and Paul with his back to the camera. It made the main newspaper headlines. It was even discussed in Parliament, believe it or not. And then, of course, we get on to the formation of Wings. I was never a massive Wings fan. That said, Live and Let Die, Mull of Kintyre, people would have had enough of Silly Love Songs. All those sort of tracks I think are terrific. So it's a really insightful, helpful documentary. There are contributions from Paul's now grown-up children. There are vintage interviews with Linda. Paul McCartney himself is an executive producer on this, so you can feel the authenticity. You just feel that, yeah, everything we're being told, I can take it literally, I can take it as gospel. And I just found it absolutely fascinating. Really, it's put together in a very Beatles style, as you saw there, the sheep dance, jumping up and down the screen. It's a little bit chaotic in the way it's put together, but that's fine because that was the Beatles. You look at something like Yellow Submarine or Magical Mystery Tour, and it's filmed in that kind of style, but as a documentary. And I think it is really, really good. Paul McCartney's released a new single this week, so it's a timely thing to be watching. Yeah, I loved it.
Yes. I saw it as well. I agree with that. It was a very good watch, 8 out of 10 for me. And like Epic, the Elvis Presley film that's just probably leaving cinemas now, the actual animation involved in some of the clips, we don't get a lot of talking heads in this. In fact, I don't think we get any talking heads other than McCartney and kind of historical clips. But all of the voiceovers of those comments about McCartney are associated with some really clever little animated sequences.
Yeah.
Which
is very Beatlemania-ish. It's very Beatley.
It's very kind of Yellow Submarine, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Magical Mystery Tour kind of stuff.
I think even if you're not interested in the Beatles or Wings, but if you are interested in the history of rock music, because arguably the breakup of the Beatles, perhaps alongside the death of Elvis, are the two key moments in rock history in many ways.
Yeah.
And so I think that even if you're interested in just the history of pop music, it's worth seeing and being informed of all that happened.
Indeed. Yes. It is really interesting how he was derided for his first attempts at music.
Yeah.
I remember Mary Had a Little Lamb coming out as I think it was probably one of his first singles. And I thought, what? Yeah. So good document. Did either of you guys see that? Okay. It's worth a watch. It's on Prime Video. So available to stream for free on Prime Video, obviously, if you've got Prime Video. Right. So those are our 8 films that we've selected. On to our worst of the month selections. And I actually forgot to do this last month when we had our podcast, so I had to drop a little section in, but I have got it written down on my crib sheet here, so at least I'm going to get it this time. So your worst of the month, Andy?
How to Make a Killing, simply because I just thought it was going to be good. The first bit was, and then it just became a boring disappointment.
Yep, and that is the same for me as well. I thought the trailer promised just so much, but it was really quite tedious. I don't think I've ever been as disappointed by a film for quite a long time. I mean, I didn't have anything that was absolutely dreadful I saw this month. Even Melania, I have to say, I saw Melania. I haven't written my review of it yet. And it wasn't a good documentary, but at least it gave a little bit of insight into her. But I think that counts probably as a February release anyway, as a film. So that wouldn't count anyway. But no, How to Make a Killing for me. Scott, what was your most disappointing film of the month?
Again, nothing completely dreadful, but my most disappointing film would have been Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. As a fan of the TV series, or at least up until the last season or series, I really enjoyed it. The film itself, it was just a bit boring. Barry Keoghan comes in as Cillian Murphy's son, Tommy Shelby's son, Duke, and he's the new leader of the Peaky Blinders. Tommy is off moping, following on from the end of the TV series. Eventually, he does come back into Birmingham, but it didn't feel like it was a carry-on of the series. It just felt like an overlong epilogue that just felt unnecessary and, yeah, a bit dull. And I'm now a bit worried because they're bringing back the series again. They're going to start that back up. Yeah, I think this film was not a good way to link it.
Okay. I must admit, I've not seen any of Peaky Blinders, never watched it, so it was not a film I thought it was worth me seeing. It's actually streaming now on Netflix anyway, so yeah, but I don't think I'll pick this one up. Emma, your worst of the month is a film called The Bluff, which I haven't actually seen.
I was very close to picking How to Make a Killing. I'm not going to lie, I was very disappointed with that as well, but The Bluff, I've actually seen it twice. I still don't remember what happened. I watched it myself, and then I was visiting my mum, and she's like, "Oh, let's watch this one." I was like, "Sure." I still not a clue what happened, and it starts out really quite well, and I thought, "Oh, this is going to be good. I like where this is going," and then it just fell off for me. Like,
Who's in this film?
yeah, people.
Don't worry then. It's nobody.
It's, what's her name? Priya. Is it?
Chopra. Jonas. Is it that one?
Yeah, what Married to a Jonas.
The pirate sort of one? Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, Cole Urban, Priyanka Chopra Jonas. And I like Cole Urban, and I actually, until I just typed it into the screen, I did not remember he was in it either. So it was really, I know I'm selling this hard as a must watch.
Yes.
But just there wasn't a lot of chemistry. It was just
Meh. Okay. Right. So those are our worst of the month. We were going to conclude with just a quick summary of this year's Oscars. As you may know, as I think we mentioned last time, or we certainly did on our Oscar specials, Scott and I have a little competition each year for our predictions. And Scott always ends up winning. But this year, he won again. I managed to get 19 out of 24 categories. And when I look at the ones I lost, I kick myself. I said, why did I go that way? Right? That obviously was not the way it was going to go. So I got 79%, which is still pretty good. It's up near my record. I think my highest was 84%. But Scott managed to get 19 out of 21 correct, which is pretty astonishing, and you really need to put bets on next year, Scott, I have to say. So that's 90%.
If I went for short categories as well, maybe I could have got some more wrong and it could have been closer, but who cares about short films?
Well, I do. There were some very good ones this year, I have to say again. You ought to watch all the short films. I'm going to be on your case next year, Scott Forbes, watching at least the live action shorts, which are often really, really good. I guess I looked through them and thought, what are the big surprises this year? And there weren't a lot of what I would say would be surprises. I mean, cinematography was notable because Autumn Gerald Akapoor, the first female cinematographer to win an Oscar, which was great, and I thought well deserved for Sinners. And Best Actor, again, not a great surprise, but it was great to see Michael B. Jordan pick up the award. But most of the rest of it, I have to say, went pretty well where I thought it would, which is why you and I did so well with our predictions, I think.
Well, it's one of those as well, Bob, though. Even though it was quite predictable, on the night itself, most of the categories, I was thinking it was a 50-50. So even though I was getting them right, I wasn't 100% sure with most of them when the card was getting opened, whether it would be. And the 50-50s, I just did get them right, but
yeah,
well, for the most part. But yeah, I think it was overall quite a good show. I quite enjoyed it. I think the Miles Caton and the musical performance of Sinner Song, I think it's I Lied to You, is it? That was terrific. I don't know if there was something wrong with the audio when the K-pop girls were doing Golden, but I thought that sounded a little bit off for some reason. But I'm not sure I like the fact that they let two of them sing and the other three nominated did not. I think that's unfair.
No, I mean, it's not unfair because the votes have already been counted, but I think...
I know, but you should showcase all of them.
Yeah, I think you should showcase all of them. I like that, yeah. I mean, I thought the show was mixed, I have to say. There were some very good Trump jokes by Conan O'Brien, two in particular, which were memorable, but a lot of the other humour felt fell completely flat. There was one sequence where Conan O'Brien was talking to the announcer, Matt Berry, in London, which I have no idea what that was supposed to be, whether it was supposed to be funny, but it was just like tumbleweed rolling down the Western streets. There were also some very cinephile-based skits. There was one involving weapons and one particularly spoilerific one involving one battle after another right at the end of the Oscars, which I thought that's going to just alienate people, because you have to have seen the films to even understand what the skits were about. And I know Billy Crystal used to do something similar in his hosting sessions for the Oscars, where he would do kind of parodies, dropping himself into famous films. I remember one where Kevin Costner was dressed as the postman, which was one of the big bombs of the year, hanging off the rail of the Titanic, and he turned into the propeller guy falling down, which I still remember. But they were kind of really, really short little snippets, and lots of them, which meant that if you hadn't seen the film or you didn't get the joke, it didn't matter because you were on to the next one. So I thought the comedy, the balance was a bit off, and some of the presenter comedy with people kind of presenting just was dire. I mean, just come out and say, and the nominations for Best Supporting Actors are, get on with it. Because with all of that time, that useless kind of comedy time, they had to cut off some of the speeches brutally, and it was just embarrassing. Just embarrassing what they did with some of those.
That was weirdly funny, though. Like when... Obviously, they normally play the music to shut them off, but one guy, when they retracted the mic and turned the lights off, I was like, "Oh, that is so cruel."
No, that's so cringy. That's so cringy. Yeah.
Although we did make history as well with there being a tie for the first time in a long time.
Yes,
did not see that coming.
No, indeed. I know we differ on this view, but I thought the in memoriam section was really nicely done this year. I mean, each year there are names that come up that you think, God, that's a terrible person to lose from the world of cinema. And this year there were extended sections honouring Rob Reiner, Diane Keaton and Robert Redford as arguably the three big names that we lost last year, which I thought was really nicely done. And I know, Scott, you got a bit bored.
Well, I thought that went on a bit long, but I think the part for me that maybe I'm going to hell for saying this, but I kind of laughed a little bit when Barbara started singing, because she was really bad. It just felt like, what is she doing? This is not a good tribute. It's like, this is so cringy. Just stop.
She's an old lady, isn't she? Yeah,
I know, but she didn't need to do that.
It was old lady singing. We've been rabbiting on it, Andy and Emma. Did you actually see any of the broadcast?
Nope.
No.
I actually woke up and in the middle of the night, got up to get myself a drink of water, looked at the clock, I was like, oh, I can catch the end of the Oscars. So I literally watched like the last 4 awards, I think it was.
Right.
I had a really good night's sleep, woke up in the morning, got all the results and got on with my life.
Yeah, it was really nice, actually, because of the time difference this year, being able to start it at 11 o'clock and it finished at just after 2:30. I mean, that was just really a late night, as opposed to a middle of the night epic. I don't know whether you've listened. There's a new movie review podcast called The Movie Bread Club, which is actually one of the people in it is my daughter Jen. And they have an annual watch party for the Oscars overnight each year. And this year they went into it, nobody had checked the time. So they'd assumed it was going to start at 1 a.m. Actually, the award for Best Supporting Actress popped through on her social media feeds, and she went, what? And they had a mad scramble for the technology, and then they couldn't replay it from the beginning for ages, and they had to find a different theme. So disaster. But I on the proviso that the Movie Bread Club give us Flickering Dreams podcast a promo, I have to say, listen to the Movie Bread Club, because they are friggin' hilarious, I have to say, and it's a very, very good podcast. Okay, that is it. A reminder that if you want to send us your comments about March films, or indeed anything about the movies, then our correspondence address is letters@flickeringdreams.com. But that's it for this episode of Flickering Dreams. My thanks to Andy, to Scott, and to Emma. And we will see you again, at least next month, if not before. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to Flickering Dreams. Don't forget you can watch the video version on either YouTube or Spotify and listen to the audio version on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe to receive future episodes direct to your inbox. And please write to us with your views on movies that we've talked about at letters@flickeringdreams.com. We'd love to hear from you.